Hello, it's Katie. We're going to be looking at making some of these earrings. So it's a drop earring, so it's got kind of that chandelier style. It's all made integral, so it's all made out of one wire, apart from all the additions of the beads on the bottom. So, sorry, out of two wires, so we're going to have some wire weaving. But this is part of the wire that's part of the wire weaving, so it's all kind of an integral piece, so it'll sit really nicely in the ear, so this bit will stay sat forwards. And then we've got all these little charms. I've used citrine, but you can use any bead you like, and absolutely any bead you like. And we've got some wire weaving on here too. So we're going to take a quick look at what we're going to need. So we're going to need some wire. So we're using 0.8 wire. So that's going to be our base wire, that's going to form our structure. And we're going to use some 0.4mm wire, that's going to create the weave around the outer of this circle. We're going to need some featherweight head pins, or head pins that fit your beads. Most of mine require featherweight head pins here. So I've got lots and lots of different sorts of citrine there, but you can use, like I say, whatever you like. The other thing that I used was a mandrel, which I actually use a seed bead shape, so that it's this kind of circle that you want, but you can make them whatever size you want and just work out how many wraps you need to fit around your mandrel. So that's not a problem. We're going to need some chain nose pliers. So these are these ones. I've got kind of stubby ones. Ones that go to a tip are really handy with these, so that's quite a good one to use. We're going to need some some 6-step bail making pliers and some flush cutters. If you haven't got 6-step bail making pliers, it's something to form this this part of the earring around, so a chunky pen or something like that will work just as well. So we're going to move straight on and start making our earrings. So I've got two pieces of my 0.8 wire. This one is around about 15 centimeters long, this one's about 20 centimeters long. So the longer one is going to form the ear wire as well, but we're going to use both of them and wrap sort of with these level at one end. Okay, so I'm using my weaving wire straight from the reel, so that's just at the side of me here, and I've just pulled a little bit off the reel, and then we know that we're not going to be running out. Okay, so I'm going to pick up my shorter wire. I'm going to pop my tail wire underneath, so this end underneath. I'm going to hold that where they cross and then give it 2 wraps. So 1, 2. Okay. Then I'm going to pick up my second wire and just level that up with the first one. So they're about level like so. And then we're going to wrap over twice. So once, twice. Then we're going to come down to the bottom and then just wrap that bottom wire twice. And we're going to repeat this again and again for this size, which I used my seed bead tube mandrel. We ended up with 24 of those double wraps. So I'll just go through that once more and then I'll just skip ahead. So 1, 2 wraps over 2 wires, and then over a single wire at the bottom, 2 wraps again, 1, 2. Okay, so I'm just going to continue wrapping until I've got 24 of those double wraps. So if I just bring that up to show you, so 24 of those, and I'm going to finish on 2 wraps on that very bottom wire. Okay, so I'll join you back in just a few seconds. So I've worked my way along and I've now got my weave in place. So if I bring that up to the camera, you can see, so I've got 2 wraps on 1 wire, 2 wraps on 2 wires all the way along. So 24 of these double wraps, so the ones that are wrapped over 2, and finishing on the same side as we started with 2 wraps at each end. So we started with 2 wraps here and we finished with 2 wraps at the other end, well, the other way around. Okay, so now we can finish this wire off, so just making sure we're snipping this off nice and neat. I'm not going to need any of that weaving wire anymore, and making sure that we've just nipped in the ends, and the same on this side. So just snipping this off as close as possible to our work and nipping in the ends, just Just making sure there's nothing sharp, because we've got to remember this isn't going to go against our skin, but it is going to go near our hair, so we don't want to get hair caught in it either. So we want to keep this flat, and we're going to bend it, sort of keeping these full wraps towards the middle, so that the wraps where we've got gaps, that's where it's going to let this form our shape. So we're just going to start bending it and start pulling this around, and we're going to pop our little mandrel in a second. So I'm just using a tube of sea beads just to pull this around, and you'll find that fits really nicely around our tube. So using the very end of it, that's going to fit really nicely there. Okay, so I know that I've got the right shape, it's going to match the other side. There is a few little tiny gap at each side, don't worry about that. If we look on this one here, that kind of pulls around when we start to form it, so don't worry about that at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip that over. You'll find you've got to, it's going to be the same on both sides, just so that I've got this longer one on the front side. That's okay. So we're going to take this longer one and we're going to pull this so it's coming up. So this is going to become our ear wire. Okay, so that one's there, and then what we're going to do is we're going to work on these two little wires here. Okay, so we're going to grab this quite close to our bend. So I'm going to grab this with my pliers and we're going to start wrapping this around. So I want this to come in nice and smooth. You can use your pliers or you can use your fingers, just a little bit at a time if you're just doing one wire at a time, like so. So we've come around once, so we've got two wraps on the front there, and then we're going to come around again. Like I say, if you feel like you need to, use your pliers just to keep it nice and close to your work, nice and close to that piece that we're going to use as our ear wire. So, and we want to be able to see 4 wraps on the front there, so it's going to match this one here. Okay, so as long as we can see 4 wraps on the front there, we're happy with how everything else is sitting. Don't be afraid to just go in with your pliers and manoeuvre anything you need to. And I'm going to snip these ones off, these 2 here. I'm going to snip these off quite nice and short into the back, and then I can just use my pliers just to squish those down, push everything together, and just making sure everything's finished off nicely. Like I say, we don't want anything catching the hair. So I'm still at the back, so this is where I've finished at the back here. Okay, now I just need to finish off this wire, and all that's going to happen with this one is this is going to come over the back like so. So it's just going to come, it was coming in this direction, all I've done is pulled it over and snip off nice and neat right in that little gap there. So right in that little gap there, like so. And then I can just go in with my pliers and just give that extra little squish, and that one's finished off there nice and neat and tucked around the back. So now I'm going to turn it to the front. So I've got my matching pair, and now I need to start forming that ear wire. So we're going to pop our pliers in. This is the front of my design. I'm going to make about a 45-degree angle coming this way. Then I'm going to take the largest part of my baling pliers and pop that here. So I've popped it right up to the, so it's actually touching my work at this side. And then I'm going to push this all the way around like so. So I've formed our hook. Okay, now this is going to be difficult because I already made this one, but if I'm correct, I cut it so that I could kind of see it through this gap here. So if you're making a pair, I would do this bit, sort of make both and snip them both at the same time. But I made one pair, one of them and then another. So I'm going to snip that off there, and then I'm going to just take my chain nose pliers and give that little kick back. Okay, so they should be around about the same, which they more or less are. Now the other thing that you can do is you can get things like jewellery files and such, but I tend to just use a emery board. So this is just quite a cheap emery board, and I'll just file around the edges of that cut, because this is the part that's going to go into your ear, and you just want it to be, I mean, if you feel any earring it's quite sharp on the end, but you don't want it to be so sharp that it would actually hurt you. So yeah, that's fine. That's perfectly fine to go into your ear. Okay, so now we're ready to start adding our charms. So to make our charms, all we're making is kind of a wrapped loop, but it's got to fit around this the kind of weaving that we had. So I'm going to be using my baling pliers. I'm going to be using this one because I know this one is going to be sufficient for the width that I've got here. Okay, so if I use this small one, they're going to sit too tight and not kind of have any movement on there. So we want them to sit neatly but not too tight around there. Okay, so I'm going to go with my centre one. So I've chosen kind of a focal, more sort of a bead for the centre. So, and then what I generally do is I like to keep all my wraps for my wrapped loop sections the same on all of my beads, whatever size I'm adding, and then it continues with the consistency, and it continues with sort of the quality of your piece if everything's the same. Okay, so I tend to use these pliers because I know these are 3mm, but if you're just using your general pliers, then just make sure you're using the same point each time so you keep with the consistency. So now I'm going to pop my baling pliers on here. I'm going to bring this all the way around to start forming this loop. Okay, so I've formed that angle away. Now I've got kind of that shape there. I'm going to pop my pliers back in and bring them all around until this crossed. So now I have that little loop on there, and then I can just pop this on here and just encourage this to pop inside that loop. Okay, so now I'm in a position where I can wrap this loop. So I'm going to use the most narrow pliers I have, just because we've got the dimension of this weaving inside that loop. So I just want to hold it literally on that loop. So let's see if it can focus on that. So I just want to hold it on that loop so I can wrap this tail around the post there. Okay, so wrapping around, and make sure you're not gripping too tight with your pliers. You don't want to be cutting the wire. Okay, and wrap down as far as you can go, right up to the gemstone. Try not to leave any gaps, and then you can snip off your wire like so. What I tend to do is add my largest gemstone in the middle and then work out at each side. I mean, it does look nice just like that, just with that one drop off it if you wanted to do that. But I've got all of my beads all ready on my head pins, ready to start adding them. And what I did was I added these 8mm at either side, but once I'd added those I found that it was kind of quite a gap there, so I did pop one of these smaller ones just in between there to kind of fill that gap. So if I just take this one and show you, I spread these out a little bit so you can see what I've done. So I've got, let's get that one to sit the other side. So I've got my largest one here, then I popped a little one in, then I've got my next largest one, and then I popped another little one in, a little smaller one in, and then two sort of a medium size. And that way it kind of, once they actually fall, they do fall a lot nicer, sort of when they're kind of dangling there, and it creates a nice sort of drape to them. Okay, so I'm just going to continue finishing this, and then we can look at our finished pair of earrings together. See you in a second. So our earrings are almost finished. I've added all my beads, all my gemstones onto there. So all I need to do now is work harden this a little bit, just to give our piece a little bit more strength and stability. Now I do that by adding this to a steel block. So I can't work with it like this because I don't want to hammer this section here. I'm only going to hammer on a single wire for this piece. So I just want to angle it so that it's just a single wire that's on there. So I'm just going to use one of my smaller hammers. You could use a rawhide hammer as well. So something like this, that would stop it from losing its shape or anything. But this is just gonna lightly tap it. We're not wanting to flatten it out. We're not wanting to make any indentations on it. All we're doing is just tapping, just using the weight of the hammer. So that's why I've used quite a small one, because I don't want it to be really damaged in any way. But by doing that, what it's done is the wire would still bend like any pair of earrings. If you bought a pair of earrings from a shop, if you bend them, they will bend. But what that does is it just work hardens it just that tiny bit, and just gives your earrings that little bit more longevity, just like so. So I'm holding the hammer right at the end, and I'm just letting the weight of the hammer just do that work for me. So there we go. So they are all finished now. I'll just move this out of the way, it's very heavy. Just pop that there. Okay, so all finished, ready to be worn. There you go, rather glamorous, really nice and summery as well, especially with the citrine. Really beautiful earrings. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this demonstration. I've got lots more on my YouTube channel, so please subscribe if you don't want to miss out on my new ones, and pop a like below if you've enjoyed this, and check out my other videos. I will see you again very soon. Take care.